Let me take you back to a simpler time. A time when Skyblock was fresh out of the game oven. There wasn't really much to do. Once you got to the Obsidian Sanctuary, the most difficult area in the game, you were set for the rest of your life. Beyond that, you would just quit and come back when a new update was released. It was a pretty simple game. But that was until the end dimension came out. And it was a giant blob of information to swallow. Everyone rushed to find out what exactly was going on. New armor, new swords, and really tall murderous mobs. But most importantly, ender dragons. At first, nobody really had a clue on how to damage them. Getting the summoning eyes to summon them was already hard enough. Barely anyone had a good bow, except profile boosters who ran 16 tier 3 skeleton minions on 2 profiles. Or the people who farmed bones at the spider den and constantly whine about others stealing their skeletons. And even if you did have decent equipment, killing dragons was an absolute pain. But as time went on, people got better. This was an important development in society as we live in an outdamage or get outdamaged type of world. This can be seen in real life. Over the course of a year, people went from dealing 1,000,000 damage in a few minutes, to killing the dragon right as it hatched out of the egg. So how did we get here? As it turns out, the dragon fight is one of the most easily breakable, exploitable, destroyable, annihilatable, and dismantleable fights. Join us as we take a look at each way the dragon fight was exploited beyond recovery. Here is a basic explanation of a dragon fight. After you spawn it, it will start flying around while striking you with thunder, ramming into things, and sometimes shooting fireballs. Once in a while, it will stop midair while spitting balls. The first known dragon meta came from Technoblade's video, where he is dressed up in ender armor while spamming a run-in bow. It took a ridiculous amount of time to kill a single dragon. A single lightning strike could trigger a mass extinction event in the Skyblock community. However, he pulled through the pain, sold the loot and reached the bank limit. But that's a topic for another video that has already been made. Dragon armor sets such as unstable, strong, and occasionally superior would make it into the hands of consumers, who would eventually become producers. The strat was simple. Get on top of one of these pillars and just bow spam the boss. You could get a critical hit on each arrow, so there was no point on pulling back. But people were stuck on these pillars. Once the dragon moved away, there wasn't really anything they could do. That was until that statement became false. The new Tarantula Armor was the reason why. With the boots, you could jump around in the atmosphere while following the dragon. People were willing to sacrifice a bit of damage for this mobility. The Tarantula Armor also gave you a substantial amount of mana to turn into a flyable object. It was also discovered that the Hurricane Bow, which is way cheaper than a run-in bow, was somehow the best bow in the game. Its arrows deal 25% less damage than the run-in bow, but the Hurricane Bow shoots 66% more arrows. This concept of cheaper items being better than expensive item will be revisited a lot in this game. So basically they just bow spammed arrows on the dragon wherever it went, especially when it stopped mid-air. Then Hypixel had enough and decided that they had enough. And they patched bow spamming, and bow spamming was simply terrible. You now had to fully charge your shots back to deal critical hits. Gone was the debate between Hurricane and run-in bows. Instead, a completely new strat was found. Swords. At that time, the Midas sword and aspect of the dragon were the most powerful swords, and it became better to fly to the dragon and hit the dragon than to bow spam when it stopped midair. And when the dragon was moving, another method known as sword swapping was used. If you fire arrows and then hold a sword in your hand, the reforges on the sword will give the arrows extra damage. This used to work more extensively in the past, with people sword swapping to Dragon Hunter 5 and swords. But it's fixed now. But this doesn't make sense. Bows are meant to hit the watch and learn. However, this sword strategy could be further improved on. To summarize, a guy called Seymour NPC Click moved into the village, and he sold these intriguing new armor sets. Tuxedos. They let you do a ridiculous amount of damage, at the price of your healthiness. Plus, they give a total of 500 mana and 200 crit damage. It was a 3-piece set, so there was no tuxedo helmet. Therefore, people used the Tarantula helmet, which was a good combination with the tuxedo set. As time went on, people would use other helmets such as the Crown of Greed, or the Frozen Blaze helmet, but we won't be getting into that. The only downside is they couldn't fly around the dragon and harass it. However, there was an old item called the Aspect of the End, which cost 50 mana to teleport in a direction. Because tuxedos had so much mana, it was possible for people to just teleport back up to the dragon after the effects of gravity and relativity pulled them out of the dragon's reach. They wouldn't run out of mana teleporting back up. It was possible to survive the damage taken from being near the dragon by using Remnants of the Eye, which automatically spawn in your inventory after you place Summoning Eyes and the dragon spawns. Thus, the strategy of tux dropping was born. However, due to the meta changing from bowing to sorting, several things happened. This world is full of people who like to calculate thingies. And Q256 was one of them. He had received questions about whether the Emerald Blade or the Midas Sword was better. To recap, the Emerald Blade is a weapon that uses algebra to its advantage, with the equation 4 divided by 9 times 1000 times the number of coins in your purse to the power of 0.25. Since there were some omega-uber rich people who had hundreds of millions of coins from dragon fights, and the piggy bank talisman prevents you from losing coins upon death, people began to question at what point the Emerald Blade becomes better than the Midas. So he took it into Desmos, calculated a bunch of things, calculated another thing, and it was discovered the Emerald Blade was better than the Midas if you had over 200 to 350 million coins in your purse, depending on how much strength you had. So of course, people began to empty their banks and craft Emerald Blades, bringing their wealth to the end. There were times when this went absolutely and terribly wrong, but we won't be taking a look at that. Since the sword became better than bows for dragon fighting, people began to get mischievous. If you thought about clicking harder, you're right. But I have something better. The auto-clicker. In the quest to get more damage, people installed auto-clickers to outperform competing companies. Of course, the aforementioned competitors were unhappy about that. But you can't even tell auto-clicking people from legitimate people. Not even the Hypixel cheat detection can either. And as people got more powerful, people were forced to do a social manipulation strategy known as dodging. The way people find others to spawn a dragon with is by spamming main lobbies with a message such as, "Looking for dragon party, have 2 summoning eyes," and they get party invites. If they see a try-hard party then, they simply won't join, knowing they will lose their chance to get first place in damage, and lose out on profit. This made a lot of people mad. And people used to argue about it a lot back in the day. Another unrelated thing that happened was leeching. When people didn't feel like buying summoning eyes, they would just deal damage on dragons that they didn't summon. There was a small chance you could get dragon boots or a helmet without placing summoning eyes but getting first place in damage, due to how the dragon loot weight system works. So lots of people took a shot at it, especially when it was a superior dragon. Of course, this made even more people mad. But they wouldn't be mad for long. The meta would change once again. Which made more people mad. Now introducing, Mage items. When dungeons came, items that had abilities became more important in the game, and many YouTubers milked this concept. Using mage items to play the game became more reasonable, using mana in day-to-day life. This was exposed by Toadstar. And as more people got enchanting or alchemy 50, and new mana reforges were released, this was combined with a feature called ability scaling. The more mana you had, the more damage your abilities do. And since some people had thousands of mana at their disposal, mage items became better than bows and swords for fighting. Items such as the ink wand, voodoo doll, frozen scythe, and basically anything that fires a projectile that costs mana would be used to deal what is called ghost damage. Let me explain what ghost damage is. When you use mage items, the amount by which you lower the dragon's health and the amount of damage that is registered becomes divergent. Let's say a dragon called Bob has 10 million health, and you hit it with a spot of ink causing him to drop to 9.5 million health. The amount of damage you have dealt is 500,000, but the game will think you have dealt 2 million damage. People used this to ensure they would get first place in fights, with people stretching out the dragon fight to several minutes long of squeezing their pufferfish so they could get billions of million ghost damage, even though the dragon had a few million health. However, this only works when you are in a lobby that doesn't do any real damage, allowing you to keep farming ghost damage. In a sweaty lobby with average tuxedo-wearing businessmen holding emeralds, they will do real damage fast enough to kill the dragon before you can farm enough ghost damage to get a high placement. And tux dropping survived another day. That was until it was discovered you could kill the dragon not only before it stopped once, but right as it spawned. This is called pre-firing, where you fire arrows before the dragon spawns, which hit the dragon right after it hatches. And it was quite overpowered with the golem pet. A level 100 legendary golem pet deals 500% more damage on every 5th hit, so if you kill 4 zealots before the dragon spawns and hit the dragon, you would deal ridiculous amounts of damage. But this could be improved with the magma bow. Yes, I am serious. A bow that used to be made fun of because it was such a mid-game weapon. But it was somehow now the best bow for dragons, because if your quiver is filled with magma cream, you will deal double damage. And it apparently dealt more damage than other bows. But wait. Doesn't the run and fires 3 arrows which makes up for the lack of damage? That didn't matter anymore. The whole point was to kill the dragon on the first shot, so the 2 other arrows fired by the run and bow wouldn't even touch the dragon. A single arrow from the magma bow dealt more damage than 1 arrow from the run and bow. And it dealt almost the same damage as the mosquito bow, even though the mosquito bow costs over 10 million coins. So people used the magma bow. Also, people found out that the edible mace, another weapon that used to be made fun of because it was just stupid, was actually awesome. Because the ability lets you deal double damage on your next hit. And yeah, that's basically where the meta is at right now. Equip your golem pet, kill 4 zealots, use the edible mace ability, put magma cream in your quiver, and pull your magma bow back as the dragon spawns and hope your arrow is the first one to hit. Who knows what the next ridiculous meta change will be? Maybe the chicken pet will become the new best pet for dragon fights. The Skyblock meta can be very unpredictable sometimes. But what isn't unpredictable is the eventual death of dragon fighting altogether. The dragon loot is dirt cheap due to new better items, making sure you'll lose money 99% of the time. But people keep fighting dragons because for them, it's the only fun thing left to do. Others do dragon fights to purposely lose all their money so they can finally quit. It's one of the few things left in the game that you do just for fun. We've reached a point in the game where most of the things you do seem to be things you have to do, when they really aren't. What's the point when you could be doing things that you want to do? Anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about for today. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe. I stayed up way too long for this project.